What's going on, YouTube? Busy day. It's raining outside. I was waiting for a day like this, a little bit of water, and I'll show you what I've been up to. Stick around. Swale time. Alright, here's my awesome front lawn. Total devastation building the pond. Water comes down here and flows like a gradient this way, pools here. So one of the reasons why I dug this swale up here is because the water then overflows. Once it's pooled there, it overflows down here where I capture it into this pond and this swale. Alright, when I first learned about swales, I built this atrocity. So this thing here used to go, kind of funny, used to go from there to here. That's how far it was. It was like a little like 9-foot swale. The funniest part about all that. So it's funny to laugh at your failures, right? The funniest part about that is all the rainfall would basically just circumvent it anyways and come down this path that I'm standing on and go down. That swale was actually catching very little. Now I can't extend it too much further over here because there is, unfortunately, a telephone pole there. So there's power coming in. I got the utilities to mark it out. And it's a good thing I didn't hit this when I came, but it basically comes this way. So when I first built this swale, I didn't know where the power was. I just started digging. Mistake number one, obviously. Get someone to come out and flag where the utilities are underground. I figured I wasn't going down too far, so it wouldn't matter, but still, it's just better to actually flag it. Last year, there used to be walkways here, both sides, and the rainwater would kind of flow away and leave my land, go down to the lower area, but eventually leave my land. I wanted to extend, let's go back a sec. Okay, last year or maybe the year before, I can't remember, I extended the swale from here and I took it to put some pear trees in, and I took it to here, right about there. This is how far it was. A lot better. Actually captures some rainwater in big events, but what was happening still at the same time is I designed an overflow sill in here and the water would just kind of come down. This is where all these rocks were, so I rocked it in. So that the erosion wouldn't, the overflow wouldn't erode the soil, but it would just basically come down here. So the swale itself was actually not really holding that much water. Now, what happens, just based on the way that the land is, the land kind of goes this way and this way, a bit of a ridge, and comes down. So all the rain flow was kind of sheeting across the land, bypassing the swale. So I have been for a long time saying I'm going to extend this swale, and I finally did. So let's check it out. And I'm not done. Alright, so here's the swale. I've walked through this a couple times. This is a burdock. So it's a good, it's kind of like comfrey. It's got a deep taproot. You can eat it. It's got these burrs. Those are like super fun. You get them all over yourself. I keep getting them on myself. But this swale basically comes all the way down. And now I've extended it. Okay, so you can see I've taken it right over. This swale is now going to capture any of the water that hits, and it's going to spread it right out along all these fruit trees. This was quite a bit of work this morning in the rain, but so worth it. I'm loving it so far. Now, if you notice here, I don't know if you can tell grade very well, but it slowly rises up and then it curls around. I'm designing the overflow for now right here. So what this point here is actually the lowest point on the whole swale. This right here is the lowest point on the whole swale. So when it fills up too high, is actually going to overflow around here. And I've planted all this out to clover, and it's very dense vegetation, so it'll handle a little bit of sheet runoff very well without erosion. And then it will run down through there and hit into this swale here, and then it'll spread that out. So in an extreme rain event, I'm going to collect water in this swale, and then it will transfer over to the other swale on an overflow. Now, actual contour level kind of pinched in on this pear tree here, and I'll tell you kind of how you can deal with if there's things in the way. So I contoured this out when I did my last extension of the swale last year, and I know that the contour line, it gets very flat here, so I can kind of pick where I want the contour line to be. The best spot for it to be is actually kind of right through this pear tree here, or even on this side of it. This is a little bit lower. So what I had to do here, and what I'll have to observe and watch, is if this swale fills and this area fills up first, and then as the level rises there, the level creeps across the swale, then I know I'm not on perfect contour. So what I'm going to do is, as I get some rainfall events, like some really large ones, I'm going to observe where that water wants to sit right now, because that will show me where the lowest area is. And then I can kind of adjust. So this, even though I did mark out contour before, it was very rough, and I'm going to use observation to let me know where the rest, if I should dig back into this hill a bit, take that soil and build up a bit of the berm. That will push the contour level back and up a bit, and I can kind of adjust. So I've left myself a little bit of wiggle room if I need to go back out that way if the swale's too low there, or if I need to pull in this way a bit if the swale's too high there. So I've left myself a little wiggle room that I can adjust and react. And this is basically how you can find contour on the land if you don't know how to use an A-frame, or you just want to get going and get digging. You can use the feedback of the water to actually show you where it is. Not going to run a hose and fill this, but for now I'm just going to leave it like this. The other thing you can do is, if it's a little bit low in one spot where the water's pooling, and it's a little high in another spot where the water's not pooling, you can just scoop out some of the high dirt, move it down to where the low dirt is, and balance your swale out. If you really mess up and you cut into a hill and it's going uphill and the water will not flow that way, then you'll have to lower that down, and you might have, retention wall issues. So you might just have to dig into the hill a bit, try to angle it out, and just make the swale wider. If you mess up, that you really have to mess up quite a bit in order to get into that level of fixing. But for the most part, you're pretty good as long as you just get going and you keep the swale size small. Okay, so now what you have to do, every single time I hammer this on this channel all the time, if you disturb, you have to sow. Because if you disturb, you have bare soil. As you can clearly see, I have bare soil even where I put it down. And there are like 10,000, 100,000, a million years worth of seeds that are kind of in the soil. Maybe not a million, because they'd sink down and you'd build topsoil on top. But you know what I mean? There's a ton of windblown seeds in there. There's a lot of roots that I would have fragmented from stuff like dandelion and creeping Charlie and who knows what. Maybe even poison ivy, who knows, that I've now put into the hill. Certainly comfrey. So if I want to just let nature, if I just leave it like this, nature's going to put in whatever nature puts in. There's disturbed soil, there's distress. Nature's going to germinate a whole bunch of the most pernicious weeds that it has at its disposal to build soil back. So it's going to start back at step one of the pioneering species to transition from dead soil to weed pit to grassland to brushland to scrubland with some trees to young forest to old forest. So that's how it's going to go over the next 100,000 years on this parcel of land. I'm going to be here for the next, who knows, maybe 50 of them. So I want to speed the succession into what I want. I want to sow what I want. I want food in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go sow. So what am I going to sow? Let's talk about that. Okay, some of you might recognize this area if you watched my videos the last couple days. This is my raspberry patch. I planted roughly 8 raspberries or so, maybe a year and a half ago. And they keep spreading, and then I keep digging them up and putting them stuff in different places. The patch used to go pretty much to the edge of the swale. So when I dug this swale, I wanted to cut through the raspberry patch and use some of that to plant as, you know, feedstock to plant into the swale. So you'll notice this whole entire swale has been planted out to raspberries. And I've also put them down by the road for people to enjoy as they walk by. This is lilacs and raspberries right by the road. Second thing is I dug up some comfrey. Now I want to stabilize this soil, so what I did is every foot I plugged in comfrey roots right on the water side here. So this will dry out. It's not like it stays full of water. It'll just fill and then it'll slowly leach into the ground. So what I actually want in the berm side is just a wall of roots, a rhizome layer to tie this all in together. So I put comfrey every foot all along inside here. The next thing I did was put a bunch of daffodils down. So I've got daffodils planted out all in there. When I dug out this topsoil, it's all muddy now, but it's full of clover, and it's actually full of some raspberry or strawberries that are creeping across and trying to root into the walking path. So when I dug that out, basically what I did is I dug out an square inch of this, set it aside, dug the junk dirt underneath and put that down first, and then I took the chunk that I put out and put that on top. So you can see that the top of this swale is actually all planted out. There's just little plugs of this clover patch right on top of it. So that will root in no problem. Clover will handle that very, very easily. And that'll, you know, there might be patches here and there, but it'll root in. And then I sprinkled just some of the better dirt on top. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to broadcast clover, parsley. I'm going to do some what can I think of it? Parsnips. I'm going to do some parsnips and daikon radish down the further side. I don't want the daikon radish too much in here because I don't want to make big porous, holes that are going to die back. The comfrey will live, so it's okay. The trees will live. It's okay, but the parsnip will kind of live and die. If I don't harvest some, it'll just rot. So I don't kind of want that pathway, that hole in the soil. So I'm going to plant some comfrey, some strawberries, raspberries, black locust seed. I'm actually going to scatter all in here. And then just kind of whatever else I find. I have some collards that I might plant because I got rabbit pressure coming in here. So I'm going to do the whole clover, garlic, red Russian kale, collards thing. That way they eat that and they don't push further into the trees that I'm going to end up planting here. So I'm going to seed this. I'm going to take some of the compost. I'm going to sprinkle that on top of the seeds. And then I'm going to go grab the wood chips and mulch the top, and then we'll be done. And that's it. I think I might widen this. I'm liking shallow, wide swales now that I've done a couple of them. Some people do these massive swales like 4 feet deep and like 12 feet wide. But I just got a shovel. This took me a couple hours, so this is about all I can do. But I think I'm going to do it wider. The only problem is I got this elderberry here. So if I go too much wider, I'm probably going to have to dig this guy up. I'm going to dig through a ton of strawberries. And then I might have to dig an apple up depending on how far I go. I might do that, I might not. For now, I'm just going to watch it and see how this evolves. See how it is in a rain event. But it was fun. And I think it's going to look great. Especially when the daffodils come up. This naturalizes in another year or so. I think it's going to look fantastic. But it's functional. That's the most important thing. This space is now 1,000 times more functional than it used to be. Okay, so I planted all the seeds. Let's go take a look. Okay, so we got a bunch of seeds. Let's kind of mix them. So the black ones are collards and red Russian kale. These are parsnips, little yellow ones. I don't know if you can see that. That's clover. One last thing, when you seed, and then I have black locust there as well. Black locust, you actually have to boil water. And then, so they have to be cold stratified, and then you have to boil water, and then let them soak in boiling water for a little bit. And then that'll speed them up, or else it will take 10 years to germinate. These here, I'm in the swale, and this is clover. So don't forget to sow out your actual bottom of your swale, because that will kind of keep weeds from growing out of there as well. And then the clover will stabilize the actual swale. Ideally, you do something like, say, watercress, something that likes to be dry, but also likes to be like literally wet feet, like sitting in water, as long as it's not stuck sitting in water. So watercress is great. I don't have any, and I can't go out and get seed, so I have to do what I can. So clover is what it is. I widen this a little more, probably going to widen it a bit more even still. But first we're going to actually just sort this out. We're going to sprinkle compost and then wood chips. Kind of funny to see. This is Ginny. She's checking everything out. She's very curious. What also is really fun is you disturb soil and a bunch of creepy crawlies and critters get upturned, and you see the birds scooping down and picking up a little snack. So any kind of disturbance, the birds will actually love it. She's just checking the whole thing out. It's kind of funny. She's gonna probably eat all my strawberries this year. Okay, so the compost is down. Now it's not a lot, it's just enough to basically cover the seeds. You could kind of rake the seeds in or kind of tamp them in or whatever, but it's just easier I think, to just toss some wood chips down right on top. It's funny, but it's actually already looking nice. I like it. All right, this is exciting. Service berries are breaking bud, so that'll be nice. I tell you, having a food forest, there's always something. There's always something out there that just, kind of brings you a little bit of joy. So we're done. Wood chipped. I packed this thing with strawberries. It's just so nice to have free source of strawberries. Like, it's just great. Oh, look at that. I had so many I even forgot one. We got daffodils, some currant cuttings, tons of wood chips, seeded out like crazy, big tall raspberries, tons of strawberries, more currant cuttings. That side is a shadier side, and this is the sunnier side. So we got elderberry. Elderberry should really like it in here. Getting flooded, draining, flooding, draining. The elderberries will absolutely love that. They'll send roots, right down underneath the water table, or the bottom of the swale here. More elderberry cuttings. So this puppy's packed tight. We'll see how it turns out. So that was basically grass to swale, step by step guide. Some of the video of me actually doing the work ended up not really working out very well, so sorry for that. I wanted to get a time lapse of me actually digging. It didn't really work out that way, but there you go. Step by step, build a swale, plant it with food, see how that works, see how it goes. I'll give you updates later on. Watch out for them, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so we're gonna try an experiment. We're gonna try, most apples you train to central leader, and then you fan out the branches. we're gonna actually try to do an open vase center apple, and we're gonna cut it pretty much knee height. So this is kind of where you want to get it. It hasn't branched out. It hasn't branched out yet at all. So we want to go. So we want to look for a couple good branches here, and then we're just going to go right above one of them. And we have to understand that as soon as we do this, these are going to become the scaffold branches. So we want to get a couple buds that are facing in different directions. So here I have a bud facing straight out, and here I have two coming out this way, and I have one going this way here. So this is a decent spot to cut. So I'm going to cut it right there. Okay. So that's our experiment. Is it recording still? So that's our experiment. I could potentially go a bit lower. We'll just leave it at that and see how that goes. It should fan out like that, and then we'll kind of prune it and train it like one of the peach trees. See how it goes.